Hey there folks, BlackCross here, and welcome back to another impressions video, where today we are going to be talking about my impressions on Wulong Fallen Dynasty. Now, I saw this game a while back, and I was interested at first, until I found out a few things from several sources and stuff like that, and it kind of made me kind of push back a little bit, but then I discovered that it was going to have a demo release, and when I saw that, I was like, well, I was interested in this title, I might as well give it a shot and see if it holds up to perhaps maybe a potential buy, a potential buy. And, well, I have to say I've got some interesting thoughts about this, as well as some, I suppose the word I'm looking for is some unfortunate, feelings about this game, I mean, depending on how you feel about it, depends on what you think. It is technically a Souls game, what would you expect from any form of game where you create your character, you get various of armor and weapon and stuff like that, and your main goal is to go from point A and point B, fight the boss, and complete the mission, blah 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 blah, all this stuff. But, however though, I'm gonna go ahead and just say this right now, and that is this. There is a key difference between a Souls-like game and a Neo clone. Now, I say Neo clone because obviously I've talked about this extensively in the past, but I think it needs to be reprised again in order to kind of make sense. And that is this. Team Ninja is the people behind the design for Neo and Neo 2. They were also the same people who also helped create Final Fantasy Origins Strangers of Paradise. And, well, my impressions on that game was a little bit least to be desired. I will arguably say that I was not that big of a fan of the game. It's okay, but it lacked its polish in areas that I would have liked for it to make, and I would have liked it to be like, more toward a Final Fantasy action combat type style rather than a straight up Neo clone. You get where I'm going at, right? Now, we can all just say that, oh well, Neo is a Souls-like game, which means technically you would like it, right? You would think that, but playing Neo and then playing Strangers of Paradise, I've learned a lot, and that is that I am not a fan of this gameplay style. For starters, number one, combat is faster, which, depending on how you feel, could be a benefit, but that can also be the downfall, as in, you need to have, ninja reflexes in order to survive these games, This Neo-esque clone style, you have to have reflexes of a ninja, not just being able to just get good. You need to be able to react quickly and respond accordingly, because if you just wave your sword around recklessly, you're gonna die quickly. And that's what happens multitude of times for me. Many times. Many times in this demo, in fact. But I suppose one of the biggest things that I don't like about a Neo clone-esque game is two main factors. Number one, the drop rate are too random. Now, obviously this could be interpreted differently depending on how you feel, but I don't like the ideal of weapons and armor to be completely random like this game is, where a weapon or armor could drop at any moment, and then all of a sudden you'll have random stats and stuff like that, it feels kind of meaningless really at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, what should matter is obviously one, being able to have a good defense, or B, being able to deliver perfect attacks. But then, you have a spirit gauge, you have spirit defense, and all this technical stuff. It's one of those things where it's Team Ninja, I feel like they do too much and not enough of other things, instead of making a better Souls-like game, they prefer to stay in their comfort zone and make a Neo clone. And it can be frustrating. It can be frustrating because what could be a good game ends up being just mediocre at best, which is unfortunate. That being said, I will say that Wulong is promising. After playing the demo, it is quite promising. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I say it's promising, but let's go on ahead and break it down. So, first and foremost, there's the character creation, and the character creation is a lot more versatile than a Dark Souls would be, you know? In terms of character customizations, it's definitely a lot more creative. You have a lot more freedom of what you can do. There's even adjustment of hair length, depending on the hairstyle. I mean, heck, you can even go as far as to say you can create Goku. I'm not even being exaggerated. Whenever I discovered this hairstyle, I was just laughing at the fact that you can go either Super Saiyan or just God mode, and I'm just like laughing. It's just unbelievable. And yeah, but the customization is really good, and I have to say, when I got done customizing my character, I was like, this is it. I got my character, and let's just dive right in. Let's finally play this and see what we're about to get ourselves into. Well, quite frankly, combat feels a little bit perfected in some areas, but then there are some areas that I still don't prefer. What do I mean by that is that whenever I first heard about this game, I heard people talking about that it's like Neo meets Sekiro, where Sekiro requires you to have perfect counter timing to where you can deliver a better execution kill and stuff. And, well, if you are anywhere familiar with me and my history with Sekiro, you'll know that I suck at it. Now, record, I get to the final boss, but I have yet to actually officially beaten it, you know? The final boss had just completely beaten me down and stuff like that, and I kind of told myself that I was going to try to start over and see if I can finally beat it eventually. Eventually, I will come back to it and do it. Just for the time being right now, I'm just not in the mood to, like, die over and over and over due to improper countermeasures that I can't seem to pull off because of my terrible shoddy timing. This game, however, though, I would argue and say the timing is somewhat good, but at the same time not as forgiving, you know what I mean? Like, there'll be times that the timing is like on par perfect in the midst of combat, but then there'll be other times where my timing is just complete terrible garbage. So it's one of those things where it's like, if your timing's good, then you can easily counter attack any enemy or any boss for that matter, and you'll get through just fine. It won't be that big of a deal. However, though, if you suck at it, then prepare to die a lot. Just so much, you're gonna die a lot. And that's kind of the biggest thing about this game, is that you're gonna need to learn this game's mechanics, because this game has a lot of different stuff going for it. You know, aside from the counter part, you also have a morale rating. The number above your HP, as well as the number above your enemy's HP, depends on the likelihood that you're going to be able to take out the other opponent. Because it's kind of weird, because it's sort of like a level gauge, you know? If your morale rating is higher than the enemy's, then you should be able to take it out with no problem. If it's higher than yours, then prepare to die. Or if you're good at it, then you might be able to stand a chance and beat it. You know, it just depends on how skilled you are or how good you can get and stuff like that. And I've kind of come to accept the fact that, yeah, this morale meter, while I'm not fully understanding it at the current moment in time, I kind of feel it. I feel that this morale meter could be beneficial to making this game good. Now, would I say that is perfect? Not 100%, but there's a lot of gimmicks about this game that makes it unique. For example, when you're leveling up, you have different elemental attributes that you level up under. Each elemental attribute levels up a certain way, and based on whatever you level up in terms of that elemental attribute, contributes to your wizarding skills. Yes, there is magic in this game, and depending on the magic depends on the likelihood that you're going to be able to use that particular weapon. And depending on the elemental increase of your skill depends on how well a first you can in terms of using other spells. So it's kind of technical in the sense of like, okay, depending on what you level up could depend on how well you can use other spells or other weapons and armor and stuff. So there's a lot of elemental tricks that needs to be studied on when you're playing this game. And I have to say, I kind of like it. I do like this ideal factor of having the different elements and it having like a different tributation in terms of spells, weapons, and so on and so forth. I kind of like it. I really do dig it. There's also, later on in the demo, after your first mission and on to the second one, you do get the ability to where you can summon your guardian spirit thing, which is not surprising considering how Neo works, so of course they would keep that in. But it's relatively simplistic, although I will say that the button configuration is a little bit sloppy, you know? For example, R1 allows you to activate numerous of different abilities that you can use. It's also the same ability that you use in order to pick up items, as well as to interact with conversations and stuff like that. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, they try to make that one button combination do multitude of stuff depending on the situation. Now, depending on what your thoughts are on that ideal, that could be a good thing until you start to think about the counter move that I was talking about earlier, where you have to time your counter moves in order to defeat the enemy and stuff like that. Now, the counter move is circle, but circle also allows you to dodge. So depending on the timing of your skills, you can either just do a normal dodge, or you will actually counter the enemy. And sometimes, if you're like me, you will accidentally dodge into the attack, which will almost kill you more likely. So it's one of those things where it's like, button configuration could use a little better enhancements, you know? I don't like the idea of one button does everything. I mean, we have Balan Wonderworld, and you know what happens there, where every button does one thing. In this case, one button does everything. So a little bit better button configuration would have been necessary, but I kind of see where this is going, especially depending on if your timing is perfect. Again, this all is about timing. If you can dodge correctly, you can at least counterattack correctly, depending. And you will have to learn this quickly as you will play through the demo or in the main game, depending on if you're going to get it day one or not. There is one other attribute that I have learned in this game, and that was only because in the second mission, I was getting my ass beaten down. I was constantly dying. So I kind of thought to myself, wait a second, what is this thing right here? These numbers. These numbers are supposed to do something, but I'm not learning what they do. Obviously, I'm being dumb, I'm an idiot, and therefore I don't understand how the game works. But then I started to learn, are these checkpoints? I mean, are they like the bonfires, you know? Because essentially these bonfires are supposed to, you know, help you level up, you know, heal up, respawn enemies, stuff like that. And it functions the same way, but there are like two types of checkpoints. They're the main checkpoints in which where you do rest, level up, all that stuff. But then there are these smaller checkpoints in which where they briefly heal you as well as reset you, but they're not like your official checkpoints. So it's like, huh, weird. But what's even weirder is what they actually do in the main scheme of things. They raise your morale rating. Remember how I was talking about morale ranks? Depending on if you're higher than the enemy, you could take him out easy, or if the enemy is higher than yours, you may have a hard time. Well, I've learned that if you tried to collect all of these checkpoints, your morale rank will increase for that area. Therefore, you could potentially take out the boss if your morale rating is higher than the boss. And I kind of did this. I looked for as many checkpoints as I possibly could find, and whenever I couldn't find any more, I went and fought against the boss, and I found myself to have actually killed it a little bit easier. What? I'm still kind of figuring out how this works. I'm not 100% sure if the morale rating has anything to do with, like, stat improvements or stuff like that. If it does, perhaps maybe it helps speed up the character, or maybe my defense is higher. I don't know. It's just, I'm still trying to figure out stuff. Obviously, this is, after all, first impressions. So until I actually play the full game, I don't have a full idea of how it all works and stuff. But whenever I made that sudden realization, things became a lot more easier. Also, too, I've made another discovery about this game, and that is that I am what you would call a heavy builder. Now, ordinarily, I try to go for a balanced build, you know? My character is light to where that way I can dodge, because obviously if I try blocking, it's going to take all my stamina away. So instead of blocking, I try to go more of dodging, but at the same time, I try to have a heavy weapon to where I can deal as much damage and phase through the boss at the same time. This doesn't always work out well, but it's an ideal premise. That was until I discovered a hammer. This hammer that I found in the game literally got me through everything. I literally just one-shotted almost everything with this thing, and I was just like, holy shit, I love the hammer. And I just kept killing everything with one shot of this hammer, and I'm like, I like hammer. And then I killed the boss with that hammer, and I'm like, I really like this hammer. And as I went through the level, you know, finding all the checkpoints and stuff like that, and just one-shotting enemy after enemy after enemy with the hammer, I'm like, I really like this hammer. And then, when I got all the checkpoints, when I killed all the enemies and leveled up, I then fought the boss, and this boar boss is the only boss that I took down without dying. I beat it on my first try, and by the end of it, I was like, I love hammer! I never thought I would actually like the hammer weapon, but dadgum, if this mallet ain't saving my ass, holy shit, is it good! Ultimately, my first impressions definitely took a weird turn about this game. At first, I didn't know if I was gonna like it. I definitely am not a fan of the Neo-clone aspects. There are definitely improvements that are needed in the base game, but after learning the mechanics and after learning what I can do and how I can get around things and stuff like that, I think I've come to an assumption that I could actually enjoy myself with this game, even with all the complicated thing that comes around with this, you know? Maybe I might eventually just buy this game and just actually play it, you know? Maybe I might eventually do it. Right now, I have too many games at the moment that I'm wanting to play, but I will probably eventually turn around and buy this. I think I will. I do actually like what I'm seeing here and what I've been playing. And what I've been playing has been fairly entertaining. Actually, not fairly, it's been really entertaining, especially after attaining the hammer. Just, that hammer's good. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on Wulong Fallen Dynasty? You know, at first, I didn't know if I was going to like it, and then when I heard it was a Neo/Sekiro type thing, I was very against it, but then when I played the demo, it kind of redeemed itself. I was like, okay, I may actually pick this up, you know? It's one of those weird things where it's like, after playing it, I realized, you know what? I think I might enjoy this. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you guys later.